Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am officially done with The Great Gatsby and other works. So, this is my second reread of The Great Gatsby. The very first time I read this was in January, and this was before I made my YouTube channel. So I'm rereading it so that way I can talk about this book because I have a lot to say about this book. So let's just jump right into it. First of all, I got the not special edition, but it's like the newer edition of The Great Gatsby at Costco. So I got this in December, and I'm obsessed with the cover. And there's Gatsby. And then there's the green light. And then there's Daisy, but we'll get more into that. So what I like about this book and what I don't like. Let's jump into what I do like about this book. First of all, I love the golden foil. I'm obsessed with the golden foil. And then the inside of it is beautiful. And then we get an introduction of the author. I don't know how to say his last name, but this is the table of contents, and you have two stories in here before The Great Gatsby. So in total you have 3. And we're going to jump right into This Side of Paradise. So with This Side of Paradise, it's basically an allegory of this man's life, meaning that he wrote a story based of what he learned, or not what he learned, but what he'd been through in the war and growing up and all that. But I will say this though, with This Side of Paradise, the main guy, I find him very annoying because he says he's very ambitious, which he is. He is very, very ambitious, but he's just, I don't know, he's just more of like, I'm ambitious, but I don't want to do too much work, but I still want to keep putting in the work. And it's like, okay. But, he falls in love. He falls in love with 3 different women. So the first woman he falls in love with, she doesn't fall in love with him because she's just like, she does like him, but she fell in love with somebody else. So that first love was completely just not worthy. And then the second girl he fell in love with, she wasn't a good fit for him. She likes to talk about herself, and he likes to talk about himself. So when he does try to get into her world, she doesn't like that. So she basically tosses him to the side and goes on from there. And I'm like, okay. And she tries to commit suicide. So I'm like, okay, well, that just went a whole different route. Why? It doesn't really explain why she did what she did. So I'm like, okay. And then you get to the last girl. They don't get married, but they do end up dating, but then they break up. And he basically falls into this world of drinking and just trying to be more ambitious, trying to pick himself up. So with This Side of Paradise, it didn't really intrigue me, but I reread it, and it makes sense on why he did what he did, but also it just felt like I'm reading about somebody who basically gave up in life. And I'm like, okay. And what's interesting about that is that this guy, the author, he basically, his wife, she also wanted to be a writer, and he didn't like that. So he was very, like, he was just very mean, because it even says too in here, because when you go into the introduction, if you're curious and if you ever get this book, you can go into the story of Zelda, and it's basically that Zelda is complaining about her husband, that he's just full of himself and he's just a piece of work, and that he just wasn't a very happy guy. So it kind of made sense. But also, he plagiarized his wife's work. Now, the work that he plagiarized with her is the second book, which is called The Beauty and the Dam. We're just going to go straight into the opening. The Beautiful and the Dam. Now, this one intrigued me. This one intrigued me in a good way and a bad way. So, you have your two main characters, who are Anthony and... what is her name? Give me 1 second. Nope. Sorry. You have Anthony and her name is Beauty. Okay, where are you? Gloria. So you have Anthony and Gloria in The Beautiful and the Dam. Now, so when they first end up meeting each other, is that... sorry, let me get that out of there. So when they first end up meeting each other, they... Anthony fell in love with Gloria, and Gloria, just like the other women in the previous book, she's very full of herself. She likes talking about herself. She wants other people to talk about her. And he basically tries to fall in love with her. But then when he does try to fall in love with her, she basically just tosses him to the side. And she goes, no, that's not what I want. And he's like, okay, so what do you want from me? And she goes, well, I don't know. You're just not my type. And he's like, okay, well, that's fucked. Sorry. Well, that's messed up. And basically she's just like tossed to... so basically he's just tossed to the side, and it's like, okay, well, that's cool. So somewhere down the line, they ended up reconnecting and ended up falling in love, to where they got married pretty quickly in the fall. Either the fall or the spring, but they end up falling in love, and they end up getting married, to where... now this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I'm like, okay, it puts it into debate on who's more at fault than who. So Anthony, to get more of him... well, to be fair, I blame Anthony and Gloria both very equally, but I'll leave it up to you guys to debate. But just to keep it very simple, Anthony says he's ambitious, but he doesn't want to put in the work to be the ambitious guy. What I mean is that he complains a lot that he doesn't have any money. He complains that Gloria likes spending his money. He complains that his grandfather is coming to an end. Like, his life is coming to an end. And that he asked his grandfather for money, and his grandfather basically told him, well, no, you gotta work for your money before I give you mine, even though you're in the will. But that can change. That can all change one day. Him. Alright, well, fine if you say so. And then you go into Gloria. So, when they first end up getting married, Gloria, she's very picky about what she eats. She's complains a lot, to where... when Anthony asks her to do simple tasks, she basically says, no, I don't want to. Like, for example, this is like in... I can't remember what year it was, but this is like... in the years where the women don't work, but the men do. I can't remember what year it was. Don't come at me. Or do. Either way, it's fine. But, basically, Anthony goes out to do whatever he does, and then he tells Gloria, like, hey, can you do the laundry? since you're not working and all you want to do is be here and be beautiful and spend my money, that's totally fine. But all I'm asking is that you do the laundry because we have no clean clothes. She tells Anthony, well, I will do it, so I'll make sure to get it done. But then she never does it. And it's like, madam, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then she complains about the simple task. She goes, well, you're not making me happy. I'm not making myself happy. And it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. We have two people. This is at the beginning of the story where I'm going more on Anthony's side and I blame Gloria because she's doing whatever she can to ruin her marriage because she's unhappy. And it's like, okay, cool. So it makes sense. It makes sense. But then when you go into the middle of the book where Anthony is sent off to war and Gloria is at home by herself, Anthony starts making poor decisions. He starts having an affair. And then he's having a dilemma between Gloria and the new girl that he's fallen in love with, to where the new girl follows him to the other side of the war, to where he's at, but she doesn't know that he was sent home back to New York because he was sick. And so he goes back to New York to go back with Gloria, and he hears nothing about the mistress. She's completely forgotten. Gloria, on the other hand, she's getting into the movies. And it's a little questionable because even though there was like no innuendos of her being like mistreated in the movie industry, nor that it does state it, it's just more of like Anthony sees his wife and he's like, well, she's getting into the movies and she's hanging out with this guy who broke up with her a while ago, like several years ago, and now she's working with him. It's a little questionable. But then again, he doesn't really have much of a standpoint because he did cheat on her and he did have an affair with her. And so it's like, okay, so you're not, like, both of you are in the wrong. Both of you are in the wrong. But during this time, Anthony continues to tell his wife that we only have $5 in my name right now. And it's like, how do you have $5? What are you doing? Like, you're not working? So what are you doing? Yeah. I was like, when I read that he only had $5 in his account, I'm like, dude, what the are you doing? Have you not been working this entire time? And it's funny because in the middle of the book, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's right. He hasn't been working the entire time. He's just been lackadaisy with everything because he's waiting on his grandfather to give him the money. Now, this is what's interesting because his grandfather did tell him that even though you're in my will, it will change. So up to this point, Anthony is relying on the will. Now, his grandfather, he comes to visit him, and he sees that Anthony and Gloria are hosting a party, and they're just going off the rail crazy. They're drinking or smoking, like they have no care in the world, to where the grandfather came in to visit. Before he even went into the house, he just stood by the door, looked at them, and then walked back out. And I wrote that, and I read that part, and I'm like, wait, why didn't he just go in to see it? I'm like, oh, because he's one of like the greatest names in this era, to where people respect him and they look up to him and they treat him as a royal gentleman, even though he's not royal, but they treat him like one. So when he looks at Anthony, he's like, yeah, he's just going to go off and spend my money. He's not going to be smart about anything. So he's gone. He's off the will. So the grandfather takes him off the will, to where Anthony goes to court. And again, this is where in this moment in the book where I'm like, okay, I blame Anthony and I can't be mad at Gloria, because Gloria tells Anthony, you should be working, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Like, there's, like, all you do is drink, and then that's it. I haven't been out drinking. I haven't been out partying. I haven't been doing anything. So I'm like, you know what? I can't be mad at you, because this is in an era where the women are not working. So, you're chill. You're chilling. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. But then Anthony, he's getting mad, and he's drunk every single day, and I'm like, okay. am I seriously just reading about a big man child just screaming and crying that the world hates him? Yes. Okay. But then when I finished reading the book, he takes his grandfather's next heir in line. So instead of Anthony, it's some other cousin, a far distant cousin. He takes him to court for the money, and Anthony ends up winning. Now, Anthony and Gloria have hit the lowest of the lows in their marriage. They're still married, by the way, at the end of the book, to where when Anthony finally wins the money, him and Gloria end up going on a boat or going on a cruise and traveling the world. And again, he doesn't work. And at the end of the book, he basically stands there like he owned everything. And with every struggle that he has endured, he deserved this. And I read that part of the book and I'm like, no, you don't deserve that, because not once did you work for it. Not once did you think about doing something other than sit around and wait for money to land in your hand. Also, you're crazy. So, no, I don't agree with that ending. I hated the ending. I hated the ending. Now, that's all I had to say about The Beautiful and the Damned. Now, going into the moment we all been waiting for, which is The Great Gatsby. Now, like I said, this is my second reread of this whole entire book. So, when I first read about The Great Gatsby, I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about the movie. I knew nothing about any of this. So, when I was told that I should read the book because it's such a good book, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll see about it. Like, I'll debate on it. And going to Costco, I found the book, and then I'm like, ooh, The Great Gatsby. So when I first read this book, when I first read the book, I thought The Great Gatsby was going to be at the beginning of the book, and then all the other ones can come right after it, because I thought The Great Gatsby was like the biggest one of his writings. But I was wrong. So I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. So I had to endure 2 books that pissed me off and jump right into The Great Gatsby. Now, I have a lot to say about this book. I love this book. I love The Great Gatsby a lot. So let's jump right in it. The Great Gatsby is told in a first-person perspective, and you are met with a man called... Give me a second. You're met with a man called Nick. And then, so Nick, he lives in a great big house next to this other great big house. And he knows nothing about the guy next door. He's never seen him, never heard of him. All he knows is that he has thrown lavish parties. Now, one day, a butler comes over to his house, knocks on his door, and gives him an invitation and says, Mr. Gatsby would like to see you. And he goes, what? I'm being invited to one of the parties? I don't know this guy. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the party because I have nothing else to do. And so when you meet Great Gatsby, you hear that he's a rebel, he's a spy, he's a drug dealer, he's a gangster, he's killed people, and he's traveled the world, and he's just all, like, you hear these crazy stories about Great Gatsby. But when you meet Great Gatsby, when Nick meets Great Gatsby, he sees him as a gentleman. Even though Great Gatsby even tells him, I'm not a gentleman, but that's how you perceive me, then that's fine. That's fine. I'm totally fine with how you perceive me. To where Nick is like, okay, so has anything that I heard is true, or is it all a lie? And Gatsby will tell him it's true, so let me tell you more about my life. And as he's talking to Nick finally asks him, why did you invite me to the party? And that's where we get this moment where he tells him about the green light across the seas. And I'm like, who lives across the sea, Gatsby? Who is that? And it turns out it's Daisy, his long-lost lover who got married to Tom, who's a complete and utter disgust of a man. Like, I don't like him at all. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. And then Gatsby tells him that the reason I invited you is not because you're my neighbor, but it's because you could help me win my woman back. Because I know you're related to her. And he goes, how do you know about me? He goes, well, I've been around for a long time. I've known you for a little bit of time. And I've known Daisy for a really long time. And she would tell me cousins and stories and all this. And he's like, so you only want to use me to get to my cousin? He goes, yes. But not only that, I want you to invest into stocks. And you'll get a lot of money. And I will pay you for helping me win Daisy back. And he's like, okay, I'm intrigued. So anyways, this is where my anger comes out. Because as I'm reading the book, and again, this is my second reread. But as I'm rereading the book again, and I see Daisy's name pop up, I'm like, no. We already know where this is going to go. Daisy doesn't deserve Gatsby. Daisy does not deserve him. Daisy played with Gatsby's feelings to where even Nick tells him, hey, I want you to forget about Daisy because you can't fix the past. You can't rewrite the past. Like, you can't recreate it and have it happen the same way you thought it would. Gatsby, on the other hand, is like, no, I can definitely do that. You know, it's me. I'm the Great Gatsby. I can do anything. And it's like, this isn't gonna go well. This is not gonna go well. This is not gonna go well. To where Tom's mistress husband basically he sees his wife getting completely and utterly destroyed by a crazy driver. And when his wife dies, Tom tells him, by the way, that wasn't my car. That belongs to Great Gatsby. And he lives here, and this is what his house looks like. This is what you will find. And this is who killed your wife. This is the one that your wife is having an affair. And this is where I'm like, Tom and Daisy deserve each other. Because Daisy basically stayed with Tom, even though he cheats on her, abuses her, and basically manipulates her to stay with him. Gatsby, on the other hand, he doesn't do any of that. He basically tells Daisy, I will love you, and I know you love me, so come with me. And when this incident happened, Daisy chose Tom, and they both, all three of them, meaning Daisy, Tom, and their daughter, pack up their stuff and they leave. They leave on the day that Great Gatsby dies because Tom's mistress husband found out and killed Gatsby. And the first time I read it, I cried. And then the second time I read it, I was really angry. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the way how this all happened. I don't like the way that it made me feel. I'm just very angry. I'm very, very angry. So, not to give too many spoilers. Sorry about the spoilers. I just really, really love talking about this book. Like I said, I read this book before I started my YouTube channel. So now that I started my YouTube channel, I'm like, you know what? I want to introduce people to other books instead of what they've been seeing as mainstreamed and hot topic right now. So I'm like, yeah, let's do The Great Gatsby. So overall, if we go back to the table of contents, I would honestly, let's start with This Side of Paradise. This Side of Paradise, I'm going to rate it. I'm going to say a 3 out of 5. I'm going to say 3 out of 5. This one really didn't do anything for me. And if we go to The Beautiful and the Damned, I'm going to rate that one. I'm going to rate that one also a 3 out of 5 just because it didn't really do anything for me. I just lost interest. I didn't like the characters. But if we go down to The Great Gatsby, I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. Just because I felt a whole lot of emotions. I had high hopes for it to have a different ending. And what's funny is that after the first reread of after I first time reading The Great Gatsby, I wanted to watch the movie. And it's funny, as I was watching a movie with my family, one of my family members didn't know about the book. He didn't know like what the movie was about, so he was asking me questions, and I just, instead of me telling him to just watch the movie and enjoy it for what it was, I gave him every bit and detail of the movie, to where when Daisy first came up, he goes, "Oh, who's that?" I go, "Oh, that's Daisy. We don't like her." He goes, "Wait, why?" And I told him, and he looked at me, and he goes, "Nah, she can't be that bad." I'm like, "Oh no, just watch. You're 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 not gonna stand her." And he watched the movie all the way through, and he looked at me and goes, "I hate Daisy." I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Why? Why did she go with Tom?" I'm like, "I don't know. I've been asking my dad since I finished reading the book." Like, I really don't know why she chose Tom and not Gatsby. And it just, I don't know. I Daisy lives in my head rent free every time I think of The Great Gatsby. And I'm like, I can't stand you. You're annoying to me. You really are. But anyways, that's all I got for you today for The Great Gatsby and Other Works. If you are interested in this book or interested to read the other 2 sets of books, I don't know if they come separately. I don't know if they now come in this big collection. So, at any point in this video, you can stop to look at the table of contents. You can pause it, or you can pause it and look at the 3 different books. I know The Great Gatsby comes by itself, so that's already done. But if you're looking for This Side of Paradise, The Beautiful and the Damned, I don't know if they'll come separately or together. So this one I just got at Costco. So yeah, I hope you have a good night. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you on the next one. Night.